Welcome to Season 4 of the Knack for Business podcast.
So, as an audience, are you tired of feeling isolated and overwhelmed while trying to grow your business alone? That's exactly what Percy will talk about: how Canada Growth Network helps entrepreneurs replace isolation with community, referrals, and practical tools to grow smarter, faster, and stronger. Join the conversation and discover how CGN's Monday Power Hour and ongoing support can transform your business journey. Our guest today is Percy Barr from Canada Growth Network. Percy is a co-founder of Canada Growth Network, or CGN. He's based out of Kingston, Ontario. This national community is built by Canadians to help business owners break the isolation of running a business alone, recognizing that our rising costs, economic uncertainty, and fast-changing technology can overwhelm entrepreneurs. Percy helped create CGN as a place where owners can gain practical training, trusted referrals, and real support. Through weekly Monday Power Hour sessions, he connects entrepreneurs with tools, knowledge, and relationships they need to grow smarter, faster, and stronger together. Percy, it's an absolute pleasure having you here, and welcome. And do you have a favorite quote or saying, sir?
Well, one that I've used for years is, it's kind of like the Marines, to the brave, good fortune. So, if you if you're not willing to step out of the your comfort zone and take on some new stuff, chances are your life is going to continue just the way it is today. So, to the brave, good fortune.
So, Canada Growth Network,
Uh-huh.
its existence, it's ta-da, we're here moment. What convinced you that it was required? What have you seen out there from your networking exposures or networking exposure that said, hey, this is going to be something that's a good idea?
So maybe a little bit of a step back, Bernie. I started in computer sales and technology sales, and through right after college, I went into that, and I slowly evolved into a more corporate job. That corporate job was anything from installation of computers and technology to doing help desk work, and then eventually managing the help desk and also managing the server farm for a healthcare organization. You learn a lot of things as you grow through that. And now I've moved back into more of the business side of things and out of that public sector kind of era. But you learn a lot of stuff that's going on with computers. One of the reasons we kind of looked at CGN was that I'm sitting with a group of guys who were talking about business stuff and realized that, this whole idea of getting together and actually talking about business is something that's rare with a lot of entrepreneurs because the people around them aren't talking about this. They're talking about, they're late to pick up the kids, the price of gas and whatever else is going on. But they're not talking about things like funnels and marketing strategies and those types of, and it's hard to find groups to do that unless you actually go to your local chamber of commerce or whatever. But even then, it's not on a regular basis that you can actually go. So we thought about CGN as a way to actually do three things. One is to actually try to break that isolation factor so that you had a constant place that you could go to. Another thing is to actually be able to refer people not only to CGN, but also amongst the members, and also a place where we can kind of get the technology things sorted out for a lot of business people. A lot of business people are not technophobes, or they are technophobes. They're scared of technology. So this would be a way that you can actually ask somebody some questions and not feel like an idiot. Sometimes when you go in and you talk to the experts, their style is such that it feels like you're imposing. That's not the case with CGN. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Mostly because you grow as you learn this stuff. So that's kind of where we're at. So let's get rid of the isolation. Let's learn about business from business people, and then we can have a discussion as to how that technology or that concept can work inside your business.
I actually recognize that when you're saying the element of technophobe. Sometimes I think it's not just technophobe, though. There's a learning curve to certain elements. Right? I watched the guys doing a house renovation at my house, and I know I could do that. It just would look like absolute crap if I did that. Right? Far better to have the solid device, or even do I pick this or do I pick that? Which is the best fit? someone who's already had that experience.
I can fully understand that, Bernie. I mean, I grew up in a farming community. I've got the ability to make furniture and do all that stuff with woodworking and stuff. But it doesn't mean that I actually want to buy I want to make a chair. I'd rather buy a chair because then I know that it's going to be safe and actually workable. But sometimes just because you have the skill doesn't mean you want to use it. And so, that's kind of what happens with solopreneurs. They may know how to put together a letter or maybe an offer. Okay. How do they get that out to the market? How do they get that out to someone who may be interested? And how do they promote it? We've seen, we have a pitch meeting, for lack of better words. We'll have a conversation with a new entrepreneur, and they can't even talk about their business. Like, they can't get the idea of what they actually do out of their mouth so that someone can understand it. So, we'll sit with a new entrepreneur and talk about what their business is, and we'll create a script basically that they can practice so that when someone says, "Hey, what do you do?" It doesn't come out with "Yeah, I kind of do, like this kind of thing." And it does, let's get rid of the confusion. Let's get it down to simple points that you can understand, and that the chance increases for new business.
I find about solopreneurs is some of them realize too late how desperately isolated they are. I know you have worked in a couple of sort of mid-sized computer companies, but there was somebody to drink a coffee with. And then you moved into healthcare, which had a community the size of a decent village or maybe even a town. Right there, I find that when you're trying to do something new or relatively scary, if you're only listening to the voices in your head, it gets scary. And so I wanted to find places where I could talk to somebody who might be going through what I'm going through to help me. Is that fair?
Yeah, it is fair, Wayne. A lot of the issues that most entrepreneurs have are paper tigers. They're scary, they're big, but they actually, if we could just take a few moments and dissect it a bit, we'd understand that you've made it bigger in your head than it actually is. So, someone might have a concern about putting out a new offer because they don't know if it will be accepted in the marketplace. Well, okay. What if you could add a group of people say, "Hey, I'm thinking about this 2-for-1 offer, and I needed to be able to do this, but I need to have some feedback." Well, you might get from the CGN group that, yeah, that's a great offer, but if you just actually put this other thing that's free along with that, it makes it a great offer. And you can also do some sample pitches to people to see whether anyone actually perks up and does some of that stuff, right? So, entrepreneurs don't have a lot of chances to practice their craft. They go out and they get in the marketplace, and so they're making mistakes in front of clients, potential clients, that are actually costing the business. Well, what if we can pull that back and give you some place you could practice that pitch in a safe environment where, you're not losing a client every time you open your mouth, or a potential client, and you could actually get a script that actually works. There's two things, sales is based on trust. If you don't trust the salesperson, you'll not do business with them. And then the management side of that organization or that business is also built on relationships. So you need to build a relationship with the client so you can build the trust so that you can actually do business together. And, we're not, we're seeing a big change in the way business happens. We've gone from a transactional point of view where lowest dollar, I don't care about the service, just give me the product and let me get on with my life, to I actually want to know something about the person to see whether I can get support from them. They're going to be around for a couple years so that I can actually get past the warranty before the business disappears. Can I trust this person to actually tell me the truth? And is this a person that, even if I had a question about the product that I just bought, do they have a personality that will understand my question without demeaning me, saying, "Well, that's a stupid question"? No, you, you got to build this relationship. You got to build this trust.
I think it's interesting, that trust. Like, for example, Wayne introduced Percy to me, right? So I didn't know Percy.
Right.
I get a sense of how he carries himself, how he talks about things, how he does his analysis of things, and how he provides solutions. And I'm from being inside CGN, and East Trade Winds, which is another component of it all. I see that, people are there's a connection that's happening, there's a cohesion. Here you speak enough times and go, you really understand something. There might be some common touch points where we're going, yep, that's right. So it just reaffirms that connection. And I think that's and then now I can talk to you about, let's say, if I needed an old Ford F-150 that has lights that you pull out, not turn them on the gear lever, right?
Yep.
The fact that I know that about Percy, right, tells me something. So then when I'm talking to Percy about, oh, Percy, I'm looking at AI. What am I seeing here? What am I not understanding? Or what can I do? Right. So I think that's kind of the key. But, and then Wayne, he'll come in with some great insights. But wait a minute, are you happy? What are you trying to satisfy? So I think you've hit the nail on the head is what I'm getting at, is that community. But how does a person then turn it around now and go, I'm missing something. What are their tells that they should be looking for to guide them going, I got to find somebody. I'm missing something. It's like, you're not putting the sugar in the cake, right? And, going, why is this tasting so tart?
Well, business people try to find something that works, and usually their first sale or maybe their second sale comes pretty quickly because they're actually selling to people that they know, and that works well. But what happens when you have to go out to the marketplace and actually talk to people who don't know who you are or don't know what you do, and that gets a little bit harder. With CGN, you automatically connect with a list of people who are interested in your success. So you come into the group, and you're able to tell people what you do, and then you are able to connect with a few of the people throughout the week, and you just develop those relationships, and you ask what they're looking for business, and they'll ask you what you're looking for in business. And sooner or later, you're going to find somebody who says, I can't use your service, but I'll tell you, my neighbor down the street is looking for that, and it goes from there. The other thing that is interesting is a lot of we're living in an interesting time where we have a certain amount of isolation because we're still kind of recovering from the COVID thing where a lot of people were isolated and kept to themselves. So there's not a lot of there's not as much trust as there was in just going out to a coffee shop and talking with people. We also have a technology, just acceleration. Like, we haven't seen anything in a technology like this since the beginning of the computer age, right? And back in the 80s when we started to get into home computers, and there's a whole revolution going on the technology side. Then you have the kind of the political and business side worldwide that's kind of taking businesses that work inside and outside the country, and they're just basically destroying the supply chains and also the product chains. All those things are coming together, and entrepreneurs that I talk to don't know quite where to turn. Are they buying the right technology for artificial intelligence? Well, who do they go to talk to? Everybody that they talk to wants to get money out of their pocket. What do I do about, the increase in tariffs that are coming in on supplies? Well, everyone I talk to, they want to extract some money from my wallet to get an answer. What do I do about isolation? Every time I go out to talk to somebody wants to extract some cash from me to actually have a conversation. So when you come to CGN and you show up and somebody asks a question about artificial intelligence, right? And it gets answered without anybody extracting money from your pocket. Isn't that a good exchange of time? If you have a question about tariffs, or does anybody know where there's a better supplier for this product or parts of this product, and you can actually have a group of people who are looking, and you can extract some information at that without anybody extracting money from your pocket. Isn't that a good exchange? They feel good about giving you the information. You feel good about getting the information, and you're more likely to do a business with that other person. You're more likely to promote that other person because they helped you. And that's what CGN's about. If you come to a CGN meeting and you have an AI question or a technology question, and I can solve that problem for you, I'm not going to send you a bill. You get that answered right then and there. And we have some technology sessions that we would hold throughout the month. And you can come and it's a free for all. You come, you ask the questions, you get the answer, you would go away. Like, that seems like a good return on investment.
If you were Everyone's talking about ROI, 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 return on investment. When something is as ephemeral, when something is, I know I need it, but I don't know how I need it, and I don't know if I'm getting it. How do you plug ROI into a community so you can say this community is worth my time? Even any thoughts about that?
Well, it's actually, Wayne, it's a good question. If you had a time that you had set aside to do business with a client, and then all of a sudden there's a networking meeting at the same time, wouldn't that be a kind of a conflict? We know from stats that there are certain days that are better to do business than not. And the worst day to actually close business is Monday. And the worst time is Monday afternoon. There's lots of reasons for that, mostly because most entrepreneurs are solving the fires from the week before, right? So that's why we do the Monday Power Hour in the afternoon, is that it's the least time of productivity for an entrepreneur. So it's right after lunch, right? So they can just get into this, because okay, so we're not breaking for we're not breaking into the middle of their day. We're actually stopping after a lunch period or a coffee break, or if most entrepreneurs, it's like a chocolate bar and a cup of coffee. And it gives them a break, gives them an hour, gives them some time to get questions, and then they can get back to their day. But they can get back to their day with new ideas, new concepts. Maybe they heard about something on the internet, and they can bring that to the community and say, hey, I tried X, or I'm thinking about trying X. And some people will say, man, I tried that and it didn't work. Okay. And usually in the real world, that's the end of the conversation. But in CGN, it's like, wait a minute. So tell me how you tried it. What did you do? What did you set up? How often did you actually make it work? Did you try it with 2 people, or did you try it with 200 people? Because you might get a different answer. So the person who has the new idea can say, well, okay, well, they did try the idea, but they didn't try it often enough or fast enough to actually know whether the product actually works, whether the concept actually works. So you can get some feedback. And you can also get the, hey, I tried that. I tried it with a couple hundred people. I didn't get the results I wanted. And so I went to this marketing idea, and it actually provided a better ROI.
The Monday Power Hour, and I think it's one of a series of sessions that are being unfolded. So the purpose of the Monday Power Hour is to capitalize on that Monday afternoon, kind of almost a dead zone, for lack of a better word. I shouldn't say dead. Dead for sales, maybe, but good time to do strategy. Tell us a bit more about the Power Hour, and tell us a bit more about the other sessions that are being mapped out that you foresee.
So if you go to a different, let's look at different networking groups. So you go to the networking group, you're allowed to give a 1 minute or 2 minute explanation of what your business is like. And then you sit back, and then there's usually 1 or 2 people who give a pitch about what their business is, so they can go deeper than just the kind of the 1 minute thing. And you learn something about their business, and then you leave. Well, CGN is different in the sense that you have the ability to actually tell people what you do, the 1 minute pitch. So that's the same. But then we morph into an actual training session where we take a concept that someone has asked from the group to talk about, and we actually do probably a 10 to 15-minute explanation of what that is and what we've found. So we've done some research and also personal experience. We bring that together. We do it in a presentation. And then we open it up for questions at the end of it. So you can actually talk about what the presentation was about and see how it would work with your business. And usually after an hour, most people have other things they need to do and they fade away. One thing about CGN is we stick on, and because if there's somebody who has a long list of questions about that particular topic, we'll stay on until we either run out of time because we have things to do, or their questions get answered. So just because it's 1 hour doesn't mean that we end it after an hour. But you have that conversation part, which breaks the isolation part, which gives more confidence to the person who's asking the questions, so they're more willing to go out and actually try something in the marketplace. It's a great system. Is it the best? Maybe not, but it's the best we got at the moment. You hear about some of these marketers who do these all-day business courses, and that's great. And I'm sure that we're going to get there, and we're going to probably do that type of thing. But there's an expense to that. There's the loss of business because you weren't out actually promoting or providing. And there's also the fact that there's so much data given to you all at once. The chances are you'll back and you'll be so overwhelmed with all the data you have that how much will you do? Zip. So we've all heard of a different idea, and you go, that's really cool. I'll do that next week. Well, next week never comes, right? So CGN is a little bit different because we're going to do a session this week. It's called how to build your audience. We've done ones on masterminds. We've done ones on how to do networking, and how to put together an offer. We've done a pitch about an offer. These are things that you would normally have to go and actually pay somebody to teach you. Well, you can come to a Monday Power Hour, get what you want, and if you find that it's actually worthwhile, then we have a membership side. You sign up, you get some extra benefits, you get some personal training, some one-on-one training. You get access to some technology if you pick on if you need a tech stack, you get access to some technology. If you don't, that's fine too. We have 2 levels and we move on. But there's always somebody to help you with that stuff.
Percy, one thing that I always try to ask at least one oddball question a session. When I knew you 30 years ago, one of the places you worked was in a shopping mall, and the people who went to see you knew they were walking into a computer store because it was a shopping mall.
That's right.
If we were living in a digital world, how could CGN provide the shopping mall so that the extra benefits for traffic and even a food court or being able to walk to 3 suppliers at the same time, how could a digital version of a shopping mall fit in a networking community?
So let's say you're looking for a specific piece of technology, right? So you could come to the group and say, hey, I'm looking for something that does A, B, and C. I'm not looking to spend a lot of money on this because I want to test the waters. Has anybody got any experience? If you're looking for a catalog of what people do, then if as a member, we catalog that and provide it to the members. So you have a list of what people are doing and what services they provide, kind of like a mini Yellow Pages. If you're old enough to remember what a Yellow Page was, but it gives you an opportunity to share that information amongst the people. And we do have a plan to do a monthly newsletter, which would highlight some businesses and put those out. We put that out to whoever actually has signed up to our group. So it's not just to the members because we want to promote the idea of Wayne's coaching to the whole group, not just to the members. So yeah, it's kind of like a mall that way. But those, if you remember the mall concept, it depends on someone showing up. Well, if we look back and we roll back to the beginning of this, was one of the problems is isolation, is that people aren't going out as much as they were. If you go to your favorite restaurant and you can pull the owner aside and say, how's your business? Compared to what it was back at 2000, they'll say the people aren't there. You can see this. One of our favorite restaurants in the downtown core, he's limited his hours. So he only opens at 3 p.m. and he's done at 9 o'clock at night. Well, he found out through some analysis that that's where he's making all his money. And although he opens up for his employees earlier to do prep, he found that, those 6 hours a day are more than enough to provide 90% of the income that he was getting before. Why would you open up all those other hours for 10% of your income? A local pizza shop here. So always open till 2 a.m, right? Because he thought that he was doing himself a great deal. He would come in and he would hire these kids or whatever, employees to prep for the next day. Well, he found out that, if I just hired them earlier in the evening and closed at 10, the amount of pizzas that he was selling after 10 o'clock at night did not cover the cost of staying open.
Wow.
But then he had to actually go and say, hey, I can hire that person earlier and I can promote the business to do more supper time pizzas, and he's more than made up for the difference.
Obviously, he's not inside a university town. Otherwise,
Well,
the morning might still be good.
He is inside of a university town, but he's outside of the university circle. So he's out here in the West End. The delivery charges down to the university are horrendous. And there's about 20 pizza shops all within walking distance of the university. So He's not in that business, Bernie. So why would he be there?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the other piece of this puzzle then, in the CGN space would be, I've got an idea. Where's the optimal time to run it for a good yield? Otherwise, you're just frittering away resources to somebody that's not, no one's going to show up. But I also think there's another element that because technology would have changed in pizza making. Not so much the food itself per se, but making it available for sale. Easier capture of funds, prepay. So there's no dash and dine moments happening. Do you find that that's another element that CGN is going to help provide? Going, hey, we've done this is the old way. Here's the new way to approach things, and if you're interested, we can guide you to either the resource or we know a person that can do the resource. So would that be a fair thing to say?
Yes, it would be. We want people to kind of bring their offers, and we want them to kind of defend their offers in the sense that, have you tried this? Have you tried this? The big challenge for most entrepreneurs is they have a way of doing things that seems to have worked for them in the past, and they're reluctant to change, not because they don't like the idea of change, but because it worked in the past, therefore it should work in the future, right? And we kind of got stuck in this whole thing that the past kind of projects the future. So if you make the same mistakes last time, you'll make the same mistakes in the future. You know, Einstein said if you continue to do the same thing and expect a different result, you're crazy. I mean, my interpretation of that. So if I'm doing business like I was in the 1980s and 90s, but I'm here in 2025, I'm going to have a hard. I'm going to still going to close clients. I'm still going to probably provide enough that I can kind of keep the doors open, but I'm not going to have an expansion of my business because the methods that were used back then are only effective on the people who are actually alive and in the business world in the 80s and 90s. They're not effective with the new generation. So you need to use some new tactics. And why are you going to the market with, hey, I got this really neat idea without actually testing it with some fellow entrepreneurs to see whether it actually works? And if I bring in an idea to the group using it with technology, chances are Wayne can use the same idea with coaching, and he's not stealing from me because we're talking to different markets. So no one will even know.
If you were looking at a 2.0, if you were taking all this data, you love data. You are Mr. Analytics.
Yeah.
If you were in a perfect world where looking at data that the members provided accidentally during their they could just their data came up in that process, what numbers would you be searching for so that they could deliver a better product by osmosis because they got good data?
Well, actually, that's actually the problem, Wayne, is most companies don't have any data. So they think that their accounting system is actually the data that they need. But there's a whole bunch of other things, especially in today's world. There's not any true business that probably doesn't have a web page of some type, a Facebook page, LinkedIn page. Are they looking at the analytics? Are they looking at those types of things to see whether they equate to actual sales, or are they just vanity metrics, right? Oh, I've got 100,000 likes on my post. Oh, okay, but how much business did you make? So you may do a YouTube video, but a part of your product, and you may get 10 likes, but it could lead to 2 clients, or you can get 10,000 likes and no clients. So are you pulling those analytics out, and are you backing them up and stacking them up so that they actually create a story about why your business is working or why your business isn't? And we all know that we can squeeze data to basically convince ourselves that anything is true. The government's great at this, It's, it's the only time in life where you can say, yeah, the unemployment rate is up, but man, isn't it a great economy? Like, give me a break. So you have to look at the data with basically neutral eyes and see what it's actually saying, as opposed to what you want it to say. We listened to a lady a couple weeks ago talk about the fact that she had a client come up to her, a potential client come up to her. She does business consulting, and the lady said, "Well, I've made $1.5 million last year in sales, and I barely had enough to put food on the table." Okay, Well, somebody needs to get in there and start looking at some numbers, because obviously there's a disconnect between what she's providing and what she's getting. And it could be all kinds of leaks. It could be that you know, your cost of delivery is too high. Could be your cost of acquisition is too high. Or it could be that you have the wrong combination of products. It could be that you need to increase the price of your product and provide a different service to make it justifiable, the new price. And so you can continue on. We have a lot of businesses that are just on the edge here in Canada, and they just need a little encouragement and maybe a little analysis to say, hey, you've got something here. You just need to keep moving.
So the push to creating CGN, Canada Growth Network, it's a scaling issue, not even a scaling issue. Let me reframe that. Your connection inside the Canada Growth Network and growing it, basically scaling. How do you sustain the motivation to go, let's do it? Let's keep on. Knowing full well you can't drop a seed in the ground and have Jack from the Beanstalk results. And if you did, you should be worried, or it's not stable. One of the three things on the go there. But how do you keep going?
How do you keep going? Wayne mentioned something earlier. Is I'm a bit of a data geek, and I'm a little bit of a tech geek. So there's always new learnings that are coming across my desk. What's the easiest way to learn those and actually internalize those is actually teach them. So as those new concepts come across my desk, it's really easy to kind of keep those things going back to CGN and teaching them to people who are interested in that type of thing, whether it's a sales technique or something you've heard from a speaker. We're all kind of data miners in our own little way. And we want to bring that back to people and present it in a way that is digestible and therefore actionable.
So if somebody wanted to check out a CGN meeting, how would they get a hold of you or a URL?
Well, they can come to CanadaGrowthNetwork.com and they can just invite themselves. There's a contact thing there. You'll get on the list. That list goes out a couple times a week to emails to remind people of the meeting. And it tells what the meeting's going to be about. So if you have zero interest in that one and you actually have something else you need to do, that's fine. I'd still encourage you to come because there's the community part of this, and go from there. Or they can reach out to me directly, through CGN or Canada Growth Network. Yeah.
I want to say thank you to Percy Barr, my co-host Wayne Pratt, and you, the Knack for Business listeners. So just to give you a perspective here, years ago, Percy saw too many talented entrepreneurs struggle alone, juggling rising costs, shifting markets, overwhelming tech, the whole gamut, everything. Whether it's legislation changes, tech changes, all that stuff. So through Canada Growth Network, he's built a movement that turns solo challenges into shared victories and lasting referrals. And that's another piece I guess we could have talked about, is the referrals, because all of a sudden you go, I know a guy in that or a gal, and you make that connection, right? So there's a bit of that. There could be an affiliation. His vision is a future where no Canadian entrepreneur or any entrepreneur has to face growth in isolation, where collaboration sparks innovation and community fuels resistance.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATIVISIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter u.ca, or his website, motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people. Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert. Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host. Jovan Strika from At Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space. Then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner, and Wayne Pratt from Motive8U Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer. Please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.